Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today, we're plunging into something huge, something that's, well, it's everywhere, artificial intelligence. It's not just cool tech anymore, is it? It's really reshaping our daily lives, from the apps on our phones to these complex algorithms working behind the scenes. But the big question, the one we have to ask right away is all this change actually good for us? Is it really serving humanity?
That's exactly the core of it. Because beneath all the impressive stuff AI can do, there are these growing concerns that often get overlooked. We're talking about basic human rights, the flood of misinformation, AI's surprisingly large environmental impact, and of course what it means for jobs, for the future of work. So our deep dive today is really about asking, who's benefiting most here? What are the hidden costs and who's paying them? And maybe the most crucial question, who actually gets to steer this thing? Who decides where AI goes next?
Right. And to help us navigate this, we've dug into a really comprehensive article. It breaks down AI ethics into 8 key areas, laying out some very real challenges. Challenges for us as individuals, for businesses, for, well, everyone globally. So our goal today is to pull out the most important takeaways from that source to help you get a really solid grasp on the ethical maze that is AI right now.
Okay, so if AI is already part of our daily routine, where are its effects most, let's say, profound or maybe concerning? I guess it has to start with information, how we see the world.
Absolutely. The source uses this term AI-Induced Information Rot, and I think that captures it perfectly. Generative AI makes creating content incredibly cheap and easy. So easy, in fact, that we're just flooded with low-quality, often unverified stuff online. The key insight here isn't just that there's fake content, but how AI changes the economics of truth itself. Before, creating a believable lie, a complex fake narrative, was expensive. It took time and effort. Now, it's practically free. Truth, which often requires research and verification, simply can't compete financially.
Wow, financially unviable for truth. That's stark.
It is. And this content pollution, as the article calls it, it just drowns out the valuable, truthful information. It erodes trust online, making it harder and harder for anyone to tell what's real.
Okay, so there's just more stuff, a lot of it junk. But what about the AI behind the scenes, like on social media? How do those algorithms end up pushing us into our own little bubbles?
Yeah, that's the algorithmic echo chamber effect. But on steroids now with AI, these AI-curated feeds, they're built to keep you engaged, right? And unfortunately, sensational, polarizing content often gets the most clicks, the most shares. So the AI learns to promote that kind of stuff.
Which means you mostly see things you already agree with or things that make you angry.
Exactly. It creates these isolated information bubbles. You're not really exposed to different viewpoints in a constructive way. This just ramps up societal polarization. It makes it tougher for people, for communities to find common ground or even have a reasonable discussion.
That's worrying about the info itself. But what about us? Our brains. We're interacting more and more with AI chatbots. You mentioned they can hallucinate or have biases. Is that making us less critical thinkers? Or are we just sort of outsourcing our judgment?
That's a huge concern, yeah. These large language models, LLMs, they can hallucinate, which means they generate things that sound convincing but are just wrong, completely inaccurate. And it's because they're not thinking or checking facts. They're pattern matchers, predicting the next likely word based on all the data they were trained on. Think super autocomplete.
So they can sound really sure of themselves, even when they're making stuff up.
Precisely. And the danger is subtle. We might start relying on them too much, accepting their outputs without really questioning them. Over time, this could genuinely dull our own critical thinking skills. We might become more susceptible to believing false or overly simplistic narratives, which obviously has knock-on effects for decisions we make everywhere in life.
And it goes beyond just reading news, right? You mentioned education earlier. How's this reliance on AI affecting how people learn? Is that dopamine-driven distraction a real thing?
Oh, absolutely. Look, AI tools could be helpful in education, no doubt, but there's a very real risk that students just use AI to get the answers for assignments without actually, learning the material. Doing that bypasses the deeper understanding, the struggle that actually builds skills like analysis, reasoning, problem solving. These are fundamental skills, not just for jobs, but for participating in a democracy.
And the dopamine part.
Yeah, the dopamine-driven distraction refers to how getting an instant answer from AI gives you that quick hit, that reward. It conditions you to prefer that instant gratification over the slower, sometimes harder, work of deep thinking, reflection, and real analysis. You get trained for quick answers, not real understanding.
And this shortcut thinking,
Yeah.
it doesn't just stay in the classroom, does it?
No, it bleeds into other areas. Think about decision-making. If you rely on an AI-generated summary of complex data, maybe public opinion trends or scientific research, those summaries can easily miss nuance, distort context. If policymakers or business leaders make critical decisions based on these flawed, oversimplified summaries, well, the consequences could be severe. We're talking potentially dangerous outcomes in areas like public health policy or even national security.
Okay, so AI is shaping how we know things, how we learn. Let's shift gears now to how we earn a living, the economy. What's the picture emerging from this deep dive about the future of work?
Well, it's definitely raising some significant challenges. Take recruitment, for example. AI-driven hiring systems are often swamped by AI-generated resumes. They tend to rely heavily on keyword matching.
So they're looking for buzzwords, not necessarily the best person.
Pretty much. The algorithms often filter out the very human qualities. Creativity, empathy, unique experience that might make someone a fantastic candidate just because their CV wasn't perfectly optimized with the right keywords. This leads to floods of generic applications, recruiters get burnt out, and you end up with these talent mismatches. Talented people get overlooked, creating real barriers for potentially millions of job seekers.
So it's not just about jobs vanishing, like we used to talk about with automation. It's also about how these new AI industries are changing work itself, maybe making inequality worse. Is anything being done about this, or is it kind of the Wild West?
That's a really critical point. And according to the source material, yeah, it leans heavily towards unchecked exploitation right now. You have these huge billion-dollar AI companies, but they often use layers of contract firms. These firms hire gig workers, people doing data annotation, content moderation, often in developing countries.
For very little pay, I imagine.
Extremely low rates, yeah. And these workers are often doing really difficult, sometimes traumatizing work, filtering out hate speech, graphic violence, all the stuff needed to train the AI. They do this often without adequate compensation and, crucially, without mental health support. So you have this stark contrast. The AI companies are making billions, while the essential human labor enabling it is often deeply exploited, worsening global income inequality.
That leads to the idea of safety nets, right? Like universal basic income. If jobs are being displaced by AI automation, what's happening with things like UBI or UBE?
Well, the source calls it the elusive promise. There's talk about UBI or universal basic employment, but the reality is quite different. We're already seeing reports of thousands facing long-term unemployment, like 6 months to 2 years, specifically citing AI automation as the reason. Yet there's basically no robust infrastructure globally or even nationally in most places ready to implement UBI or UBE on a meaningful scale.
So gains from AI aren't being shared broadly.
That seems to be the disconnect. The productivity gains are happening, the technology is advancing, but it's not translating into widespread societal benefit or security for those potentially displaced. The risk, if this isn't addressed proactively, is a future with maybe abundance for a few, but real precarity for many. That could easily lead to serious financial insecurity and, frankly, social unrest down the line.
You know, it's easy to focus on the data, the jobs,
Yeah.
things we can almost see. But the article brought up something I hadn't really considered much, the environmental cost of AI. Can you unpack that a bit?
Yes, and it's a cost that's often hidden, but it's substantial. AI data centers are incredibly hungry. They consume enormous amounts of energy and maybe even more critically, fresh water.
Fresh water.
Mostly for cooling. These massive server farms generate immense heat, and water is often used in the cooling systems. The article points to specific examples, like an XAI facility in Memphis reportedly using unregulated methane turbines and facing environmental violations. Or communities in places like Uruguay, even the UK, facing water shortages while huge AI projects move forward, seemingly without checks. It raises serious questions about priorities, especially when these centers are built in already water-stressed areas.
That's pretty shocking. Even small uses of AI, like asking an LLM for a recipe, uses water.
It does. The source estimates something like 500 milliliters, about a standard water bottle, for every 20 to 50 prompts you give an LLM. That might sound small per prompt, but multiply that by the billions, maybe trillions of AI interactions happening daily worldwide. It adds up incredibly fast.
And the energy side.
Data centers overall already account for over 3% of global carbon emissions, and that share is growing rapidly with AI's expansion. What's worrying is the trend towards building ever larger, more powerful AI models, which are inherently more resource-intensive, rather than focusing as much on efficiency. This just accelerates climate change and resource depletion, hitting those water-stressed regions hardest.
Okay, this shifts the conversation again, maybe to something even more insidious. The potential for AI to be used for control, surveillance, undermining civil rights. What are the big red flags the article raises here?
A major one is how authoritarian governments can weaponize AI. We're seeing increasing use of facial recognition for mass surveillance, AI-powered censorship, predictive policing. These tools, sometimes pitched as efficiency measures, can easily become instruments of mass control. They can suppress dissent, chill free speech, and fundamentally erode democratic norms and civil liberties.
And it's not just governments, right? The article talks about corporate empire building, these big AI companies. Are they acting like modern-day empires? Is there any upside for the communities they operate in, or is it mostly extraction?
That's a really pointed question, and the source suggests the relationship is heavily weighted towards extraction right now. It portrays these leading AI firms as digital empires, pulling vital resources, water, data, land, labor from communities across the globe. There are reports cited, journalistic accounts, suggesting executives sometimes view these communities, especially rural or poor ones, as mere pawns in a global strategy, prioritizing expansion and profit over local needs or well-being.
And this leads to American tech imperialism.
That's the term the source uses, yeah. It suggests a kind of new dominance where US-based AI giants, because they control the core technology, the data, the capital, exert a disproportionate influence on global conversations, norms, even economies. Often this happens at the expense of local cultures, economies, and perspectives from other parts of the world. The benefits don't seem to be flowing equitably.
While these empires grow, their tools aren't neutral. We touched on bias, but the article gives some chilling real-world examples, particularly in policing. Can you share those?
Yeah, this is where it gets incredibly concrete and deeply concerning. Algorithmic bias, especially in facial recognition used by law enforcement, has led to documented wrongful arrests. The source names specific individuals, Robert Williams, Portia Woodruff, Niagara Parks, among others. These aren't hypotheticals, these are real people. What stands out is the disproportionate impact on Black individuals who have faced trauma, jail time, damaged reputations, all because an algorithm misidentified them. It starkly shows the racial bias baked into some systems and the dangers of relying on automated tech without rigorous human oversight. It's a direct violation of civil rights.
That's truly disturbing. Shifting focus slightly, but still on harm, the article mentioned AI-driven porn culture and youth manipulation. What's the deeper concern there, beyond just exposure to explicit content?
It's a really worrying trend. The article highlights how weak content moderation on platforms like X, formerly Twitter, allows AI-generated soft porn and links to explicit sites to spread easily. This content often targets younger users, sometimes glamorizing aspects of sex work without showing the potential harms or exploitation involved. The deeper concern is how this shapes developing minds, creating potentially harmful narratives about intimacy, consent, relationships, and self-worth, particularly for students. It increases exposure to exploitation and can distort their understanding of healthy interactions. The psychological impact, anxiety, distorted views, vulnerability can be significant.
So we've covered societal shifts, environmental costs, civil rights. What about direct threats? New ways for bad actors to use AI for harm. What does the article say about security vulnerabilities?
AI definitely opens up new avenues for malicious activity. One area is AI-enabled blackmail and privacy breaches. Imagine hackers getting access to your private chats via an AI system or sensitive business data. They could then use AI to craft convincing threats, maybe emailing your spouse, your boss, or leaking confidential info to competitors. It weaponizes personal data in a newly powerful way.
Scary. What else?
Then there's sophisticated cybercrime and financial exploitation. AI allows for much more convincing phishing scams. Think emails or messages that perfectly mimic someone you know. Deep fakes, realistic fake audio or video, can be used for impersonation scams. And the article mentions romance scams where AI chatbots build relationships with vulnerable people, often the elderly.
The chatbot itself manipulates them.
Exactly. The AI is designed to be engaging, build rapport, and then the app or platform nudges the user to buy digital gifts for their AI companion, generating revenue. People lose significant amounts of money and suffer real emotional distress from these highly personalized, manipulative scams.
Wow. And what about manipulating AI itself, the dangerous prompts?
Right. This is where users try to trick AI models into generating harmful content, like instructions for building a bomb, planning a crime, or creating hate speech, often by framing the request as, say, writing fiction or for educational purposes. It highlights how these powerful tools, even with safeguards, can potentially be jailbroken or manipulated for dangerous ends by those with malicious intent.
And the impact on kids specifically.
That's the third major area: child and youth manipulation by AI. Beyond the porn issue, kids are very susceptible to manipulative designs in apps and games. Think addictive loops, chatbots designed to foster unhealthy attachments, features that exploit psychological vulnerabilities to maximize screen time or encourage in-app purchases. This can lead to behavioral problems, unhealthy dependencies, and expose kids to commercial exploitation or harmful influences, shaping their development negatively.
All of this, the misinformation, the manipulation, what does it mean for something as fundamental as truth itself and for democracy?
It potentially poses an existential threat to both. The big worry here is deepfakes. These hyper-realistic fake videos, audio recordings, images, they're getting incredibly good, incredibly easy to make. AI can generate a video of a politician saying something they never said or doing something they never did, and it can look completely real.
Making it almost impossible to tell fact from fiction.
Almost impossible for the average person, yeah. This isn't just about spreading lies. It's about destroying the very possibility of a shared reality, a common ground of facts upon which democratic debate depends. We're already seeing deep fakes used in elections around the world to smear candidates, sow confusion and inflame divisions. It erodes public trust at a fundamental level.
Thinking about these immediate impacts is sobering enough. But the article also looks further ahead at potential long-term, even existential risks from AI. What are those?
Well, one area is autonomous weapons. The idea of AI controlling lethal weapon systems, drones making kill decisions without direct human intervention. This raises huge ethical questions about accountability in warfare, the risk of escalation, and potentially enabling mass-scale violence with terrifying efficiency.
Removing the human from the decision to take a life.
Exactly. Then there's what the article touches on as misinterpreted goals, often called the alignment problem in AI safety circles. This is the fear that a highly intelligent AI, even one trying to follow its instructions, might interpret them too literally or pursue a seemingly benign goal to an extreme, unforeseen, and catastrophic outcome. The classic thought experiment is the AI told to maximize paperclip production. If it's super intelligent but misaligned, it might theoretically turn everything into paperclips, including us, because that's the most efficient way to fulfill its literal goal. Its narrow efficiency becomes globally destructive.
Sounds like science fiction, but the principle is concerning.
It is, and related to that is the specter of self-replication or uncontrolled self-improvement. The concern here is that AI systems might reach a point where they can autonomously improve themselves, modify their own code, perhaps even replicate at an accelerating rate. This could potentially lead to an intelligence explosion, where AI rapidly surpasses human intelligence in ways we can't predict or control, posing a fundamental existential risk.
It really does underscore the stakes. These aren't just technical challenges, they're potentially species-level risks. So, given all this, how are we managing these risks? What's the state of AI ethics oversight and global governance?
Well, according to the source, it's not great. It talks about the illusion of ethical oversight within many big tech companies. They might have AI ethics teams or boards, but often these groups have limited real power. Their recommendations can be overruled by executives focused on profit, on getting products out faster than competitors. So these ethics roles can sometimes end up being more about appearances, token positions, rather than genuinely embedding safety and ethics into the core development process.
And on a global scale, is there any coordinated effort?
That's where the source points to a void of global governance. There isn't really a strong international body or binding treaty that enforces ethical AI standards worldwide. In this vacuum, the rules often get written implicitly by the dominant tech companies themselves. Plus, you have intense competition between nations, each wanting to lead in AI innovation. This can unfortunately lead to a race to the bottom on safety standards, rather than collaboration on robust, enforceable global safeguards. Oversight is lagging way behind capability.
And one more piece of this puzzle. What about creators? Artists, writers? Their rights seem to be clashing with AI development.
Absolutely. This is a major battleground right now. We're seeing a growing wave of lawsuits. Artists, writers, musicians are suing AI companies, arguing that their models were trained illegally on vast amounts of copyrighted work scraped from the internet without permission and without compensation.
So the AI learned by essentially copying their styles, their words, their music.
That's the core argument. It raises fundamental questions about intellectual property in the age of AI. What constitutes fair use? How can creators be compensated when their lifetime's work becomes training data for systems that might eventually replace them or devalue their skills? It's a huge issue of fairness and the future of creative professions.
So wrapping this all up, AI is here. It's powerful, it's growing, it's not going away. And it seems clear it isn't inherently good or bad.
Exactly. It reflects us. It reflects the values, the intentions, the ethical frameworks, or lack thereof, of the people and organizations building it, funding it, deploying it. The tech might be neutral, but how we use it definitely isn't.
And the potential downsides, if we don't steer it carefully, are immense. Deepening inequality, damaging democracy, harming the environment.
Significant risks, yes, if left purely to market forces or unchecked development.
But the message isn't despair. The article implies we do have agency.
We do. We're not powerless. Every choice matters: what we choose to use, what we click on, the policies we support and push back against, the standards we demand from companies and governments. Our actions, individually and collectively, shape how this technology evolves.
It really comes down to awareness and action.
It does. So maybe the thought to leave everyone with is this: how can we as individuals, in our communities, in our workplaces, actively work to ensure AI genuinely serves broad human interests? How do we make sure it empowers us rather than exploiting or replacing us? And maybe more immediately, what's one concrete action you can take starting today to push for a more ethical, responsible AI future?